Let's bring in CBSN political reporter Caitlin Huey-Burns. All right, so Caitlin, we mentioned this national poll. Is there any reason to put more stock into this new national poll other than the fact that it means Julián Castro now qualifies for the September debate?
Right, and that's significant, and because these national polls are used as the way for these candidates to get into the debates. We have talked a lot before how there is no national primary, and it's important to focus on the states. CBS News polling looks at the delegate count, which I think is a really good measure, because that kind of shows how the voters are at least assessing these candidates at this point. It's always important to note that these kind of national polls are snapshots in time, and they do give us a sense of reaction sometimes to national events. So we saw Kamala Harris, for example, jump after that first debate that she had because people were hearing a lot more about her. And so it'll be interesting to see whether and how these change in reaction to some of those bigger events.
So the poll showed Senator Elizabeth Warren failing to make gains over the summer. Her campaign's communication director says that she drew 12,000 supporters at her Monday rally in St. Paul, Minnesota, which would be her largest crowd so far. What does your reporting actually show?
Well, Elizabeth Warren hasn't had a singular breakout moment. She's been really slowly but steadily organizing her campaign, building it out on the ground, and raising her poll numbers. So while she hasn't had these kind of big ups or big downs, she has remained pretty consistent, which is something that her campaign is pretty happy with. That crowd that she got in Minnesota is really notable because I have seen her campaign on the ground in several of these early states, and the enthusiasm for her, she has a constituency that is really following her and excited and passionate about her. And that really matters, especially in a caucus state like Iowa, for example, that first state that will be weighing in this primary process, because you have to really galvanize your supporters. She's also made kind of professionalized the selfie line experience, which has become a staple of her campaigns as well. I see her campaign said that she stayed well into the night to finish that out. But her kind of the enthusiasm measures, I think, are really important to track at this moment, because it is a moment that people aren't necessarily paying attention as much as they will be in the next few months. So those candidates who can capture that attention now and sustain it, which is very hard to do, I think that shows a lot about kind of where they are in the campaign.
So Senator Warren rolled out a comprehensive criminal justice reform plan. It includes a rollback of mandatory minimums in the 1994 crime bill, which Joe Biden helped write. She was asked whether that move was intentional.
It's a direct criticism of a bill that has been very harmful to millions of people and has been particularly harmful to communities of color, and we need to correct that mistake.
So it's interesting, Caitlin, Senator Warren has rarely attacked other candidates. She also, though, has not shared the debate stage with Joe Biden yet. Could that dynamic perhaps change moving forward?
Well, they have a really interesting dynamic. They have been sparring on policy for years and years and years, going even back to the early 2000s when she was a law professor and Joe Biden was a senator. They clashed openly about a bankruptcy bill. And so their policy differences are stark, and they kind of represent two different ways the party is thinking about going. Do you go with someone like Joe Biden, who is more of an institutionalist, someone who is more traditional, espouses more moderate views in terms of how Democrats are seeing them, or someone like Elizabeth Warren, who is really advocating for massive structural change in a lot of different areas. So seeing them on the debate stage, I think, would introduce a new dynamic. However, I think some of these candidates are also looking at the Kamala Harris-Biden dynamic and seeing kind of what the political fallout from that has been. So in the first debate, she went after him very directly on the issue of busing. She saw her poll numbers increase after that. She saw, she made a big splash, and then she kind of came back down, and we saw that reflected in this national poll and other polls as well. So do you want to have one of those really big moments that may not last, or do you want a more sustained message? Warren's strategy has been not to attack her rivals personally, but she has drawn contrasts on policy, and I would expect that to continue. This is significant because she has been introducing lots of plans. This is the first kind of plan of the criminal justice reform plans that really starkly go after Biden.
So you mentioned Senator Kamala Harris. She is facing criticism for her stance on health care. She co-sponsored Bernie Sanders' Medicare for All Senate bill, but is now backing off. And CBS News acquired a copy of remarks she made at a fundraiser saying she's no longer comfortable with Sanders' plan. Is her campaign concerned about what kind of a message this back and forth on this issue of health care might send?
She gave an interesting interview to the Washington Post during her bus tour in Iowa, and she said that if she gets pushback for being a flip-flopper, that she would be okay with that because she wants to support a bill that she wants to put forth a bill that she supports. So there have been a lot of questions about where Kamala Harris stands on policy. Healthcare has been a major sticking point, and she has changed her positions over the course of the campaign. Now, the campaign says that she has learned from talking to voters on the ground and that she favors policies that are more realistic to implement than those that are broader or loftier. So that's kind of been something of a guiding principle. But this is an issue that I'm waiting to see whether her rivals attack her on it. Bernie Sanders has done that a little bit, but some of her other rivals haven't really gone after her. Does that change on the debate stage when they're all kind of closer together? Next month remains a question. Voters that we talk to say that healthcare is their top concern. They are less concerned, it seems, with policy differences on the issue of Medicare for all. They want to know that their candidates support changes or expansion of access to healthcare and access to coverage, but the policy details just really depend. And candidates like Harris are looking at the public polling that shows that, yes, Medicare for all is very popular, but when you look at the details, people start to view it less favorably. And so that's kind of what she's navigating, but certainly it remains a sticking point for her.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how that actually plays out on the debate stage, given that kind of landscape that you just talked about. All right, finally, I want to end by asking you about Senator Kirsten Gillibrand. The Washington Post asked her if she had any regrets over how the resignation of Senator Al Franken for sexual misconduct allegations played out, and if there's room for second chances. Let's listen to that.
My decision was to call him to resign. His decision was to resign, to not wait for his congressional hearing, to not wait for his next election. Those are his decisions, and his alone. There's always room for redemption of anybody. I don't know why this conversation is so difficult. Anyone who wants a second chance, it's always there for everyone. We're a country that believes in second chances. We believe in someone who has humility, who comes forward to say they're sorry and they have paid consequences and want to reemerge. That's always there for everyone.
So how much of an issue is this? Do we have a sense, Caitlin, how much of an issue this is for Senator Gillibrand, and how might it affect whether or not she's able to qualify for the debates?
Right. She has certainly stuck to her ground on this. She has said she has no regrets, and she has made her campaign really about equality, gender equality, has kind of pushed these issues to the forefront. She hasn't really gained much traction in this campaign yet so far at all. She's stayed pretty stagnant. She's at risk of not making that debate stage next month, which would be pretty significant for her and would raise questions about whether she could actually continue this campaign. I think, we've also had conversations with voters on the ground that have brought this up as kind of they wish that she wasn't out front on this with Al Franken. But several other senators supported this as well, and she was a leader on ousting him, but wasn't the only one. And so that's kind of the point that she's been making, and that she wants to fight for these issues and has no regrets about them.
Right. Meantime, those debates are just around the corner, so time is of the essence for her. Exactly. All right. Caitlin Huey-Burns. Caitlin, thank you very much.